Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting. Written by Clare Pooley. Published in June of 2022 by Pamela Dorman Books. With a snippet read by Richard Coombs. Available for checkout right now at the Alice Pendleton Library. 8:05, Hampton Court to Waterloo. Until the point when a man started dying right in front of her on the 8:05, Iona's day had been just like any other. She always left the house at 7:30. It took her an average of 20 minutes to walk to the station in heels, which meant she'd usually arrive 15 minutes before her train left for Waterloo. 2 minutes later if she was wearing the Louboutins. Arriving in good time was crucial if she wanted to secure her usual seat in her usual carriage, which she did. While novelty was a wonderful thing when it came to fashion, or film, or even pastieri, it was not welcome on her daily routine. Some time ago, Iona's editor had suggested that she start working from home. It was, he'd told her, all the rage, and her job could be done just as well remotely. He'd tried to cajole her out of her office space with sweet talk of an extra hour in bed and more flexibility, and when that didn't work, he attempted to drive her out by making her do something awful called hot desking, which, she learned, was corporate speak for sharing. Even as a child, Iona had never liked sharing. That little incident with the Barbie doll was still seared in her memory, and no doubt her classmates as well. No boundaries were necessary. Luckily, Iona's colleagues quickly became familiar with which was her preferred desk, and it morphed from hot to decidedly frigid. Iona loved going into the office. She enjoyed rubbing shoulders with all the youth, who taught her the latest lingo, played her their favorite new tracks, and told her what to watch on Netflix. It was important to keep at least one finger plugged into the zeitgeist, especially in her profession. Bay, bless her, wasn't much help on that front. She wasn't, however, looking forward to today very much. Her latest editor had scheduled a 360-degree appraisal, which sounded altogether too intimate. At her age, 57, one didn't like to be appraised too closely, and certainly not from every angle. Some things were best left to the imagination, or not thought about at all, to be honest. Anyhow, what did he know? Much like police officers and doctors, her editors seemed to get younger and younger with each passing year. This one, believe it or not, was conceived after the World Wide Web. He'd never known a world where phones were tethered to the wall and you had to look up facts in the Encyclopedia Britannica. Iona thought back somewhat wistfully to her annual appraisals when she'd first started at the magazine nearly 30 years ago. They didn't call them appraisals then, of course. They were called lunch, and they happened at the Savory Grill. The only downside was having to politely remove her editor's fat, sweaty hand from her thigh on a regular basis, but she was quite adept at that, and it was almost worth it for the sole manure, deftly detached from the bone by a subservient waiter with a French accent, and washed down with a chilled bottle of Chablis. She tried to remember the last time someone, other than Bay, had attempted to grope her under the table and couldn't. Not since the early 90s, in any case. Iona checked her reflection in the hall mirror. She'd gone for her favorite red suit today, the one that shouted, "I mean business and don't even think about it, mister." "Lulu," she called, only to discover the French bulldog already sitting right by her feet, ready to go. Another creature of habit. She leaned down to attach the lead to Lulu's hot pink collar, studded with diamante, spelling out her name. Bay didn't approve of Lulu's accessories. "Darling, she's a dog, not a child," she'd said on numerous occasions. Iona was quite aware of that. Children these days were rather selfish, lazy, and entitled, she thought. Not like darling Lulu at all. Iona opened the front door and called up the stairs, as she always did. "Bye-bye, Bay. I'm off to the office. I'll miss you." The advantage of boarding the train at Hampton Court was that it was the end of the line, or the beginning, depending of course on which way you were traveling. There was a life lesson there, thought Iona. In her experience, most endings turned out to be beginnings in disguise. She should make a note of that one for the column. So the trains were always, as long as you arrived early enough, relatively empty. This meant that Iona could usually occupy her favorite seat, seventh aisle seat on the right, facing forward, at a table, in her favorite carriage, number 3. Iona had always preferred odd numbers to evens. She didn't like things to be too round or convenient. Iona sat down, putting Lulu on the seat beside her, and began arranging her things in front of her. Her thermos filled with green tea, just chock-a-block with age-defying antioxidants, a bone china cup and matching saucer, because drinking tea out of plastic was beyond the pale in any circumstance, her latest mail, and her iPad. It was just 10 stops to Waterloo, and the 36-minute journey was the perfect opportunity to prepare for the day ahead.